Welcome to the Overanalyzers. I'm Mike. I'm a software engineer, and I'm here with my brother Dan, who's a concept artist and illustrator. We are a weekly podcast, and this week is going to be a little bit different. This was not a planned conversation. This was us talking after a show, and it sparked something that turned out to be very interesting to us, and this launched us into a topic and a thing that we've been exploring for many weeks now. So this started with me being frustrated about a game I play, which is called StarCraft 2. If you haven't seen it, it's a competitive game. You can almost think of it a little bit like chess, except that there's no turns. You just play as fast as you can. It's a stupid way to explain it, but it's close enough. It's a competitive game, and I've been able to get good enough to be in the top 2% or so of competitive players. But I have not been able to get beyond that into the really upper tier. And this is something that's been frustrating to me for other areas of my life too. I felt this way about classical guitar and other things that I've pursued. I've gotten good, but had trouble breaking into the really upper echelon. So this whole conversation sparked from that. Me being frustrated and asking questions about why this is happening and what needs to change. So we'll leave it at that, but that's the setup for what you're about to hear. So I hope you like it.
Because there's a lot of things I want to say in response to what you just said, but I don't want to say it now because we talk about it later. What if we just recorded this on Wednesday?
Well, I don't know how much I have to say about it. It's more of just a question for me. You know, I don't really have an answer. I just have this question and observation.
Wait. Hit record and then
we're
give
recording.
me a question. Okay. So what's your question?
Well, the question is, how do I get better at some skill? And like I said with the StarCraft thing, I got coaching. I had somebody tell me what I was doing wrong, and it didn't help.
Right.
And I've heard the same thing from other people.
Well, because they're not addressing your approach. They're just addressing small incidental things.
I guess
right?
so.
I mean, in what you're talking about with the coaching, he's saying, "Oh, you should have done this. You should have done that," but he's not addressing the way that you've approached the entire thing.
Right. Like maybe I'm not understanding what is happening well enough to recognize, oh, I'm going to lose this fight unless I get a surround with the army, and I need to set that up, or I'm not anticipating what they're doing well enough.
Okay, I remember when I played guitar and I was crazy into it and I was pretty good. I mean, for being in high school or whatever. I remember going to my friend's house and me and him both played guitar and both were kind of the same. And then there was our third friend who was a drummer. And we put on a movie or something after playing a bunch of music, and the drummer had just started playing guitar just because he was interested in it. And he's tapping his leg. I mean, like a crazy person. He's tapping his leg while we're watching a movie. And we're like, what is wrong with you? What is it? And he gets up and he just goes, I gotta play guitar. I gotta play guitar. And he goes and he starts playing guitar while me and my friend just sit there and watch the movie. Fast forward 6 months to a year later, he is so much better than us. And we had been playing for maybe 6 years. I mean, giving it everything we got for 6 years. And he is way better than us. So much faster. I think the way me and you, but I can only really speak for myself, but the way we approach things is so observant of exactly what we're doing. We're not completely indulged in the thing itself. We waste mental energy observing ourselves doing it. Whereas if we could just be completely involved with it, I don't know.
No,
what do you think of that?
Yes, but it's complicated.
It is extremely complicated
because some people, and I've seen this as a teacher, I've seen some people get really excited about playing guitar and they don't get good at it. It worked for this person, but it sometimes doesn't work for other people. Like just being excited and trying really hard is not necessarily it. It's part of it, obviously, but It's not all there is to it. And so it could be if you took 1,000 people and you had some magic wand and said, poof, you all are really excited about playing guitar. You're going to sit there and like shake your leg and you can't help but go play it. Some of them would get really good and some of them wouldn't. And if nobody thought about it, if it was just they, like we just talked about, you have some mental approach that you just happen to take and that's the way you do it, or maybe based on past experiences. I don't know. You just do it. If nobody thought about it, then it would just be random. You might just randomly happen to be one of the people who thrived with it, and you might randomly happen to be one of the people who just did really poorly. And my assertion is that it doesn't have to be random. I think if you're smart, you can make sure that you have the right mental approach to it.
Well, how do you be smart?
Well, I don't know
if you're smart.
but that's what I mean. With the first one in the game effect, that is a concrete observation about what can create a certain mindset that can affect you learning something. There's a lot more to it than that. That's not the only thing that affects you learning, but you can change that. If nothing else, you can just make sure that you're the first one in.
I think, see, it's not intentional. The first one in the game, whether they decided to be the first one in the game or not, they were the first one in the game, and they're the ones that are then set up to think that way. What I'm saying is, the person that wants the thing the most does not necessarily have an edge over the person who just enjoys it. The person who really wants to do it the most, that's the person that's going to get it. If I sit around all day and daydream about how much I want this thing and how passionate I am about it, it doesn't give me an advantage over the person who just simply enjoys doing it and is obsessed with it.
You're saying that
quality of observing yourself doing it could be basically an empty spot in your brain that should have been built to be more involved with.
No, I think I know what you're saying. Here's an example. There's, again, back to StarCraft. There's this guy, he's a streamer, who plays StarCraft, and I'll watch him sometimes at night before I'm going to bed. And he is a little bit worse than me in terms of skill rating. And he knows so much more about the game than I do. He'll play a game and he'll lose, and then he'll watch the replay and he'll go, oh, I made the wrong decision here. I made the wrong decision here. I should have done this. I should have taken one more gas. I should have gone up to this eco. I shouldn't have positioned my army here. Like, he has this super analytical approach. And believe it or not, my approach to StarCraft is not nearly that analytical. I view it more like a sport where you're trying to, if you play tennis against someone, you're trying to just be faster and better and more accurate. It's not, the more brilliant strategist isn't usually the guy who wins. It's the guy who just hits the balls in more consistently and faster and whatever. Anyway, that's my approach to StarCraft. This guy's super analytical. And I very much think, as someone who is a bit higher level than he is, that he's wrong to take that type of approach.
To be that analytical?
Yeah, because instead of just thinking, I just got to make 25 drones and then go and fight and just go fast and go hard and do counterattacks and anticipate and just take it is a sport-like approach to it. That is a better approach, at least in some situations. Now, the analytical approach does have benefits, but it is very much getting in the way of him just doing it. And with this video I watched this week about this guy, the professor who talked about language, one of the major points was that if you're learning a language, you actually don't want to be corrected. You have your language partner that's explaining basic or, demonstrating basic things and giving you really simple sentences, and you're responding and saying stuff. If you use the wrong tense of a verb or something like that, you actually do not want to correct that person because it hurts them. And I forget the name, but there's some like theory about it where you want your mind to just connect a thought with words, and being told the correct word that, oh, you used it wrong, forces you to back up and think again and reestablish it and say it again. Like that is not a healthy process. You actually just want to be doing it, and
Okay.
eventually it will correct itself. And that
Right.
can
So
happen with the analytical approach. You're not just doing stuff. You're not just going for it and fighting, and it can be a
right.
problem.
Yeah, your brain is your brain can only handle so many things at once.
Right.
And the person who does it best is dealing with feeling all of these things naturally. So, say with playing StarCraft, you're not observing yourself doing these things, you're just doing these things. It's natural to you. Maybe you have thought about it a lot beforehand, but when you go into the game, it's got to be all natural. You
Yeah.
can't waste your mental energy on observing yourself doing it
Right.
because
Right.
it takes away
It
from
slows
the
you down.
performance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It causes you to be hesitant and not play as well as you should. But at this, like that is an approach. That
right.
guy could say, I'm doing this wrong. I'm thinking too much. I'm playing too slowly. I need to just go for it. Have something specific that I do, and I just do that. He could take that approach too. That there is in a weird sense, he's not analyzing the fact that he's analyzing things. If he took one
Right.
step higher and did a little bit of higher level analysis and thought, you know what, sometimes this game is more like a sport than it is, a strategy and a battle of intellect. I need to just do that. Stupid lights changed again. Yeah, but you get what I mean? Like it's not just
Yeah. No, I get what you mean, and I've thought
like
about
it's
this a
it's
lot
still
before.
analysis. Like you could arrive at that way of playing by analysis and think I need to shut off this analysis and just go for it.
My best paintings and pieces that I've done, it's when I'm able to turn off that higher brain of observing myself doing it and thinking through all of these rules and all of these the way things work, and it's when I guess people call it flow, but you're just doing it and you're not really consciously thinking about it. It's just all natural to you. Now, I only
Right.
got to that point because of a bunch of analysis
Right.
and slow learning, but once you have it, it's not so easy to turn that observation brain off, but in fact, it might be impossible to just do it consciously to just suddenly go into natural ability, but that's when my best work happens is when I'm
Right.
able to just operate on natural feelings
Yeah.
and impulses.
I almost think of myself as having like two levels of brain. The conscious analytical thinking in English, putting stuff together type of brain, and then the much more primal uh non-conscious thought.
Right.
Right. And your conscious brain, I think, is trying to set up your subconscious brain correctly to where you give it something to do, you practice on some specific thing, and then you're hoping that you develop skill and fluidity and all of those things. And you could practice drawing a straight line a million times, right? Your conscious brain could say, this is what I'm going to spend my time on. Like, how can I make the straightest possible line? And you might get really good at making a straight line, but that might be stupid. That might not help you become a good painter, right? You
Right.
could, you're at a conscious level trying to make the decisions of, okay, what do I do? And then you're trying to
Right.
set
What
up
do
your
I learn?
yeah, and you're trying to set up your subconscious, more primal brain to adapt and develop the physical skill and all of that stuff. And it's hard to know how to do that correctly, how to set yourself up in the right ways. But that's what I'm wondering at and wrestling with. StarCraft is just one specific example. I want to get good at a lot of things. Uh, StarCraft is a very concrete one. And so I've been practicing and I'm trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. How do I get good?
If your natural brain, not your observation pulled back brain, but if your natural brain is the best at making decisions when it counts, you almost wish that part of your brain was in charge of the learning as well,
Yeah.
right? But it can work like that sometimes.
Kind of.
I I don't know if maybe this is getting too crazy, but I think that's what you want. Is you want the observation brain to set up situations in which your
Right.
natural ability does the learning.
Well,
So it's not like you're just memorizing. So like for a language, you're not sitting down memorizing. Okay, this word means this in English.
right.
This word means this, because that is stupid. What
Right. It
you
doesn't
want
work.
is stranger, more natural, organic connections in your brain, which you can't get to if they're too contrived,
Right.
right?
Well, right. You want to expose your primal, deeper brain. Just I know it doesn't quite work this way, but as a metaphor, kind
If
of.
we're both able to understand each other, it
Yeah.
must mean something,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, I'll just call it your primal brain. Um,
That'll work.
you're you want to put that in the right situation. And as I said, I watched this video by this guy that was fantastic. And he talks about exactly that, how you want to be in a situation with another human being. You have to pay them or do a language trade. You know, if they don't speak English, you can do this for them with English, and then they can do this for you with German or something. But you need, that's what you need. You need to see their body language. You need it to be interactive. You need them to do very specific things of really simple words and using pictures and gestures and trying to use their bodies to communicate. That's what you need.
You need them to communicate with you on a subconscious level. They need to include all of those things
Yeah.
that you don't get in on a test or in a
Or with
textbook or
Rosetta
something.
Stone or something, or Duolingo.
Yeah.
He specifically calls out those as just not working very well at all because they don't
Right.
do that. But that's what you need. And so for language, for learning a language, as far as we can tell, that's the best way to do it that we know of. Maybe there is some other, you could refine certain techniques, maybe you could do some things better, but that seems to be the best way.
Right.
And so if I wanted to go learn a language, which I don't, but if I did, that is what I would do. I would find someone and pay them and make them do that. Because apparently,
Right.
according to research and people who are experts and who have worked really hard to study this stuff, that's what works. And we've proved that it works. So for language, for the most part, there you go. That's what you should do.
Right. Or you go move to the country that you're learning
Right.
the language
Right.
of.
But even if you do, like that's what you're not just going to walk around and, walk into a conference room and listen to people talk. Like you're seeking out those specific things. And there might be other parts of it too, like more subtle things of, the way you listen and the way you respond. And like we talked
Right,
about.
but that situation sets you up to utilize all of that
Right.
primal brain, you know?
Yes. That's how it works for learning a language. So how does it work for learning StarCraft or for learning to play the piano? And
Right.
I can tell you from firsthand experience, I went through school. I did my bachelor's of music performance degree in classical guitar, and that did not happen for me. I don't mean that it didn't happen. I mean, nobody said, okay, we've done a ton of research on people trying to learn classical guitar. There's bad ways and there's good ways, and here's the best way. This is the pinnacle of modern science. This is the best way to teach that primal subconscious brain of yours how to play well. In fact, that question wasn't even asked. The way it was approached was, here's some stuff to work on, go practice it. Hope you practice a lot or you're not going to be very good. That was the beginning and end of everything.
Well, this for sure doesn't have an answer for you, but some of the most beneficial things that I got when I was learning music were some of the things that we did together. The really weird things. We would, I don't know where you got the idea for this. Maybe it was some article by Steve Vai or something in Guitar World.
Could have been.
That's a magazine, right?
Mhm.
Whatever it was. You I think it was you that presented this, but you would play a chord, any chord. I couldn't see what it was, and you would say, try to say what that makes you feel. You would just play a chord, and I would have to say how it made me feel, and then I would play a chord, and then you would say how it made you feel. Just like really weird things like that. That's not
Yeah.
something you would do in school, or at
No.
least most people don't do in school. Um, strange things like that. And then me and my friends would, I don't know, I would play something and then he would try to play the same thing. Um, I, I would play a chord and then he would play a riff and then I would play another chord based off of that. I don't know, just different ways of communicating. We are literally communicating with each other through music. We're
Yeah.
just weird ways of using it or utilizing it. Um, that are not so straightforward. Those types of things have always stuck with me more than
Mhm.
anything else.
That's what I mean. Like, that's a perfect
Right.
example. The approach you take in a classroom to learn Spanish is a straightforward approach. You think, well, we're in a classroom, so we're going to take tests and we're going to use a book, and you apply that format to it, and it's stupid. It doesn't work. There's a way, way better way to do it if you start investigating how people work and how they learn. And actually, that's not at all how you should do it. You should do this thing where you have somebody in front of you. That's what works. And as far as we
Right.
know, that's the best way to do it. And in a way, it seems really stupid and obvious because that's literally how everyone on earth learns to speak. So you would think that we could have figured that out sooner, but we're just, as a society, stupid. But
Right. For StarCraft,
for anything, right? StarCraft being one of them, what's the optimal technique for StarCraft? People don't know. We don't.
well, I think it's that way with anything is you don't really know.
But
But
I want to know,
right,
right? What you're saying of those weird things of, hey, I'll play this chord, you tell me what it makes you feel. That actually turned out to be very beneficial. It causes you to have to engage with it with
right.
a very particular mindset. And I think it can help train that more primal part of your brain. But what else? Is that the best way? That clearly that doesn't cover everything. That's just one little thing that we happen to do randomly. Right? There's got to be so many
Right.
other ways to deal with the physical skill part of it, to deal with the hearing, the creativity, all of that stuff. I feel like nobody's really asking those questions.
Well, can you really set up a program and a concrete program that addresses something that is so not complete? We don't even understand how the brain works completely.
But we have
I,
solved it for certain things.
yeah,
For language, we have, again, maybe it's not the perfect way, but it's a really good way. You know, we have, that's a mostly solved problem. For memory, which I want to do a show on this too, memory is also a solved problem. And it's insane that people don't know this, but there are people, you can go to a contest or watch footage of this,
right.
where somebody will learn the order of like 10,000 playing cards in 30 minutes. And you think, wow, they must be some kind of Rain Man genius. But no, they're not. They're actually a totally normal person. And this has been proven 1,000
Right.
times over. If you learn the right techniques, we have figured out how your brain is, how it memorizes things. And if you use the right techniques and the right way of visualizing, you can do that too. And I keep pitching this book, Moonwalking with Einstein, but there was a guy who did exactly that. He was a reporter. He went and watched this, and he got told that by some of these, one guy is like, look, you could do this too. And he's like, no way. Like, no way. And the guy's like, no, look, I'll show you. And a couple years later, he won the contest. He learned how to do this. It's a solved problem. So memory, check, we got that. Language, check, we got that. We need more people to know about those things, so that's a problem. But there are so many other things, like the physical skill of playing a piano. I have not seen a whole lot on how to get really good at that. What's the best way to train your brain for doing that?
I think, well, for one, what are you trying to get better at with the piano? What is the end goal? Like with all the memory stuff, they have a specific thing that they're trying to do. So they're trying to memorize a gazillion numbers in a row.
Yeah,
With piano, what are they trying to, you know?
I mean, piano is a very broad set of skills, right? Or at least it could be. You know, memorizing
Right.
1,000 playing cards, it's very narrow what you're trying to do. You're trying to memorize playing cards, and so there's pretty specific techniques you can apply to that, and you will be able to do it
Right.
really, really well. I mean, using the correct techniques, you could, let's say, memorize 1,000 playing cards in 10 minutes. I forget what the numbers are. Versus a normal person not using those techniques could memorize like 7. I mean, the difference is monstrous if you use the right approach to that. Playing a piano could mean a lot of different things. If you are just trying to perform a classical piece that you have memorized, then it's, the physical dexterity, the connection between your memory and your body, things like that. But it's a physical skill, at least in
let's
in that
say,
sense.
could you, what is it, Flight of the Bumblebee? That's a pretty advanced
Sure. Yeah.
physical song. Okay, so say, could you play Flight of the Bumblebee going from never touching piano to playing that song within a week? That's sort of the theoretical equivalent of
It seems like it.
memorizing those numbers, right? Like, we haven't solved that. We haven't
Right.
figured out how to do that.
And maybe you can't. Maybe doing that from 0 to Flight of the Bumblebee in a week is not possible, but it feels like we don't really know that much. For example, powerlifting, which I'm into, is, I won't say it's solved, but it used to be that powerlifting didn't exist and nobody really knew how to get strong, or we just didn't really try. And then the science of exercise and how to eat and stuff like that changed and evolved, and it's nothing massive, but now you have people who can deadlift 1,200 pounds. I mean, they take steroids and stuff, but it doesn't really change the equation. Like, there's a lot more than that. They are extremely strong. They've trained for decades with very specific programming of, you're doing this number of reps and these kinds of breaks, and then you're eating like this. And we've nailed that down to be pretty good. And it turns out that if you want to be able to deadlift 1,200 pounds, you need to work really hard for a really long time. I mean, that there's just no way around that. But we certainly haven't found anybody who can go from, 110-pound teenager to deadlifting 1,200 pounds in a week. That does not seem to be realistic for
because you're dealing with a lot of physical
you're basically
take time.
You're in a really simple sense, you're trying to make your muscles grow along with other aspects of it, but that is just a process that takes a very long time. But for something that isn't based on muscle size, how does that fit? That feels somewhere in between those
Let's
two.
go back to StarCraft, because that's an interesting thing to think about. I mean, this is something where you have to, it's a competition game. I mean, you're playing against someone else,
right?
And yet you're still having numbers that rank you. You're dealing with physical dexterity of being able to type fast enough. You have to have a keyboard that's good, that you have good control over. There's a lot of factors that come into that.
Right.
You not only have to deal with the technical parts of the game, but you also have to be able to see what the opponent is going to do. You have to use your own intuition,
right?
To figure out what they're doing.
You're trying to read them. You're trying to anticipate. There's strategic change. That's a big part of the reason why I play StarCraft a lot, and I find it very interesting, is that it is a game that encompasses a lot of stuff. There is no single skill of, you just get better at this one thing and you start winning all the time. There's a lot to it, and it's really, really hard. If you play a game and you lose, it can be really difficult sometimes to determine why you lost. You can point to certain things, say, oh, I messed this up, but when you really get down into, where did I go wrong? Why did I mess this up? Why, there's just so many tiny things there. There's pattern recognition, there's physical dexterity, there's all kinds of stuff.
So how in the world are you supposed to get better at it?
That is my question.
Right. Well, see, my initial reaction would be to, well, let's go ahead and break down all the different aspects of the game. You have, the physical part of it. You can practice going faster. You can practice I don't know, your strategies, your whatever. Um, but I don't necessarily know if that, because I feel like you've probably done all of
Yes.
that. I don't think that's the answer. I think the answer is more weird and more
Right.
creative and
Right.
more involved. And I don't, I would not say, oh, you just need to do it more. Yes, you do need to do it more, but that's not quite the solution.
I One of the nice things about StarCraft is that you do have that skill rating. It's called MMR in StarCraft. In chess and other games, they call it ELO. It's a rating. It's a number, and it does a pretty good job of quantifying your skill. If you're ranked 3,500 MMR, you are almost certainly going to lose against somebody who is 4,700 MMR. It's
So
very tangible.
you found this to be pretty accurate
Yeah,
in
yeah, it's
your
very
experience
accurate.
with, okay.
Yeah. Um, and it's interesting that it's so accurate. I mean, there's certainly you can beat somebody who's higher or lower, but if you played 10 games against somebody who's 500 MMR lower, you were gonna win most of the time, and it's very consistent in that sense. Uh, anyway, I've played the game for a long time, and I have always wanted to get better. I never queue up into a game and just goof around and do whatever. I'm always wanting to win, and I'm always wanting to improve my skill and basically see that number go up. But I have gone through long, long stretches of time where I did not get better at all. I played a lot. I watched videos. I worked on things. I practiced. Didn't improve. I've gone through other periods of time where I improved actually very quickly, both in a me feeling better about the game, feeling like I'm playing better, and then also just winning more and seeing the rating go up. And I want to figure out what is different. Why does it work so well at certain periods and not work so well in other periods?
Well, I don't know, but what if,
There are some, not to cut you off, but there are some people. There's this guy who's a pro player. He's considered at least one of the best in the world, top three
yeah,
players or so. And he was incredible when he was 14. I mean, he wasn't even alive for that long, and he's beating people who are 30, who have played their entire lives. He got incredibly good, incredibly fast, and pretty quickly became one of the top players in the world. And the typical answer for most people is, well, he's just this child prodigy. He's just amazing. He just is. Who knows? But why? Why him? Would he be good at anything else? What is it about his approach to the game makes him so good at it? Why do other people I've seen people who have played 25,000 games, way more than me, probably more than this guy, and they still suck. They're
okay,
still like in the lower leagues.
put yourself in the shoes of a 10-year-old, because I assume he probably started playing when he was 10 if he's doing really good at
Sure.
14. Okay, the way he's playing the game versus how you play the game now. You are constantly evaluating yourself and saying, "Oh, I need to be here. I need to be at this level of skill. I need to be at this whatever."
MMR, yeah.
Yeah.
Matchmaking rating is what that stands for.
Whereas when he's playing it at 10 years old, what's going through his head?
I don't know.
But what do you think it is?
I genuinely don't know.
What did you do when you were 10 years old?
Uh,
With well, you built like a friggin' hovercraft and stuff.
well, I mean,
Think of something. Think of something you did. Okay, you just said goofing off. You're goofing
yeah,
off at 10 years old. He's no different than any other 10-year-old. He's goofing off. So maybe try goofing off.
maybe.
I mean, there's something there, and I don't know
Yeah.
if you can just create it out of just trying to create it. It has to be natural, which is basically impossible to create if you're trying to be natural, right?
Well, it's a pretty fundamental question, right? Or are we just fated to, follow through with whatever our minds happen to have for us or not? Can we affect our future? I I've seen people who play the game a lot and suck, and I've seen people who play the game a lot and are really, really good, like pro level, out there making tons of money, traveling around the world competing. Even with the same number of games played. So clearly, there's a vast difference there. And one conclusion might be, well, some people just happen to be good at it, and some people happen to be bad at it, and that's just that. And maybe you could say, well, if these bad people had the right mental approach, if they did the same things that these really good people do, maybe they'd be good too. But the fact that, or you might think that and say, well, it's just too bad they can't. You just have whatever approach you got. But the fact that I have gone through periods of time where I've improved steadily and done really well, and then had other periods of time where I have not, and in some cases even gotten worse, even though I was really trying to get better, means that there's something going on there, and I haven't figured out what it is. And I think it's weird. I think it's like what we had talked about, where when you play a chord and listen to it and have to say how it makes you feel, that's not the obvious thing to do, and how do I get good at music, but it actually turned out to be really beneficial. I think there's weird stuff going on, and I would like to try and understand more about what that is.
Okay, well, I don't know the whole thing, but you just said that there were periods of time where you were trying really hard to get better, and you actually got worse.
Well, but there are times, but I know where you're going with that, but there are also periods of time where I was really trying hard to get better, and I did get better. So it wasn't,
right.
That didn't seem to make the difference. It wasn't how badly I wanted to get better.
Well,
one more little thing. I remember, so StarCraft is broken up into leagues, right? From bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, master league, grandmaster. I was in diamond. This was one of those really long periods of time where I was just stuck. I made it up to the upper part of diamond league, and I just couldn't get out. And I tried really hard. I queued up, and I just really wanted to get better and get into master league, because when you're in master league, you're in master league. That's kind of a big deal. And I was just stuck for a long time. And then I played this guy, just played a game, and I beat him, and he got mad because he didn't like the way I won. And he said, like, lol, you suck. You're going to be stuck in Diamond League forever. And he left. And I was thinking, man, I think he's right. I am going to be stuck in Diamond League forever. This sucks. That just, for whatever dumb reason, that insult just hit close to home, because I really had been trying to make it into Master League really, really hard. Really hard. I'd done the coaching, I'd done all this stuff. And 2 weeks later, I made it into Master League. Because that guy said that thing, and it made me so mad. And that got me into Master League. But again, I was trying. I was really trying. But that person...
So you tried harder?
I don't know.
That?
I don't know.
And you're not sure that's related. You're just pretty sure?
It was a incredible coincidence if it isn't related. This person making me angry and upset got me to break into Master League. And since I did that, of pushing up into that higher league, I've never dropped below it. Like from that point, I mean, I had fluctuated, but we said there's kind of an upper end to your skill generally, and like a lower end, you kind of fluctuate within a window. My window moved up permanently, where I was then playing in Master League, and I might dip down, but I would always oscillate, into that area. And I got stuck for a long time, plateaued in the lower levels of Master League, and then I went through another period where I got a lot better, and then my skill window shifted up again to where I was in like the mid tier of Master League, fluctuating around there. There was very specific moments or stretches of time where I, for whatever reason, whatever caused it, pushed me into a higher area, and it seemed to pretty much stick, where I would stay within that range.
Well, this has happened exactly with me in art stuff. There's certain times when I'll be painting, and this actually happened recently. After the whole pandemic thing, I got a lot more time to focus on learning things, and I just became so involved. From the second I woke up till the second I went to sleep, I was thinking about art and drawing all the time and whatever. And there's a couple paintings that I did where I couldn't believe what I was doing. It's like, I mean, it was just happening in front of me, and I was not aware of what I was doing, but somehow all of a sudden I'm reaching these whole new levels that I had never been able to get to before. And now I'm looking back and saying, how did I do that? I have no idea how I did that. How do I go back to that?
Right.
And I can't go back. It's like I can't do that now. So now I'm trying to like figure out what I was doing before, and I'm analyzing it and trying to figure out exactly what I did. Whereas before, I was just doing it. I
Right.
was
You weren't
just,
analyzing at the time.
yeah, and maybe that's the secret.
But
I
how
shouldn't
could
be
that can't be
analyzing
the
it. But no, of course it can't be. Of course it cannot be. You have to analyze things. You have to think about that. Uh, Just I have no answer for this,
I
okay? I'm
don't
just
either. This
saying
is just a question.
it's I was doing my best when I wasn't thinking about it. And now I have to go
Right.
back and figure out. I'm not saying
But
you
there's
shouldn't
other
think about
times
it.
where I wasn't thinking about it and I didn't get better. So
Right,
there's something going on there. There's something that happens.
right.
And
I
I want to know more about
basically
what it is.
I don't think you can put it into concrete terms. I don't think there's ever gonna be. We should keep looking for it
No,
because
I don't
just in
agree.
case.
I think there has to be more there.
Okay,
Wait,
I like that. That's more
okay.
hopeful than not being able
Well,
to.
maybe I'm just being optimistic, but
But I'm thinking of the 10-year-old and going into 14 years old.
yeah.
He's not putting this into concrete terms. He's stumbling upon this ability without doing the observation that we're trying to do after the fact, right? So he's getting the answers without doing the work. Yeah, I mean, obviously he's working and he's doing all of these things, and he's practicing and he's playing, but he's not doing the type of observation that we're trying to do right
No,
now.
I know what you're saying, and I
The answer
totally take the
is not
point.
don't
But
do the observation.
well,
That's all I got.
for
That's the end.
him, he didn't have. As far as I know, I don't know. Maybe he is super analytical for this stuff. I'm not sure, but
Right.
it doesn't seem like it. But no, he didn't. He didn't observe his way into putting himself in the right mindset to get really good. Right?
Yeah.
He it by all appearances, he just did it, and he's gotten really, really good. So that you could conclude that, well, we're just screwed. You get what you get. Hopefully, you have the right approach going
That's
into
not
it.
what I was trying to say if I came across that
Well,
way.
right, but the fact that it can be different for me, just it would be great if I had another Mike to have him try something different, and we could A/B test and figure out what works given the same brain and the same body and the same experiences, but we don't. So I'm kind of going by the best I can. But there are periods where I could feel myself getting better. I knew it was happening. Like right now, or at that time, I'm just playing better. I'm getting better. I'm pushing my skill limit higher. Where yes, I will fall off and fluctuate, but it feels like it permanently stays higher from these very specific stretches of time. And there are other periods where even though I really want it to happen, it doesn't. And I think that there's something different there. Something going on in my brain, and I think it's a weird thing. I don't have an answer, like you said, but I want an answer and I want to pursue that.
Well, okay, let's try to brainstorm ways where you can facilitate that.
Experimenting, yeah.
Yeah, because I think that's a big important part of it. So, if you're playing StarCraft, say from the hours of, I don't know, 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock every day, start doing some random. Obviously, it's not that, but start playing at different, more random times. Play at different times of the day where, I mean, maybe you already do this.
Yeah.
But I have found with drawing that I think differently throughout the day, and I'm able to solve problems differently at different times of the day. And it will lead to new revelations of how to approach things. If I change it up, if I keep changing it up, if I do the same thing every day, obviously it's hard to come up with new things. But
Yeah. I could try that playing at different times. I think what I'm going to do is
or
almost, I don't know, play and try to put my brain into different states of,
that's what I was going to say.
yeah, like playing really aggressively and trying to act like I'm very confident and dominant, sort of, and then
Right.
playing more analytically and carefully. I don't know, just I want to experiment with different mindsets to see if that feels like it affects things.
Definitely do that. Do more weird things.
Yeah.
I mean, things that don't make sense. Do them. Try to express feelings through the way you play. I mean,
No, I know
really
I'm not
weird things.
I
Yeah.
am so sold on that kind of idea because, as I said, there's something going on and it's not the obvious thing.
Try to play upside down. Flip the screen upside down and try to play like that. I mean, well, with drawing, there's a lot of times where I flip the canvas constantly while I'm working on it, and then it sometimes when you turn it upside down, you can draw it better. It's very strange, but it's a way your brain works.
Yeah.
It would be different with StarCraft.
It would probably be awful, but
there's
right.
strange things like that
Yeah.
actually make a big difference.
Yeah. I'll start brainstorming that. I'll see what I can come up with and see what happens.
I mean, everything we're saying for you to do, I'm also going to be applying all of this to my.
Yeah, you
art
figure
stuff.
out something that you're stuck on.
My thing recently has been just how do you draw figures better? And I've gone through, God, I've drawn a lot of figures in my life, but I just can't seem to latch onto it in a way that I do other things and have that authority on it that I don't feel like I'm in control. And so I'm trying all of these different ways to do it, and I just keep getting really frustrated with it. I've tried learning the bones in the body and then working on memorizing all the muscles and all of these things, and it's just not natural yet.
Okay, cool. That's your thing then.
Yeah.
You don't have to become good at or great at drawing figures. You have to figure out how to get better at it.
Right, and that might be my problem is that I don't have an exact number like you do with your
right.
What is it? MMR?
MMR, yeah.
Okay. I don't have that exact number. I don't have some sort of thing to judge it against. I don't know. I just keep shooting in the dark. I don't know.
Well, you are the judge though. I mean, that's how art works. Yeah. There is not a number. There isn't supposed to be a number. It's basically how good of a feeling does it create in the human being that looks at it, sort of, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. That'll work.
Well, I mean, if that's your metric, right, yes. Then anyway, you are going to have to be the judge. There's no way around that. But
right.
See if you can get to where you improve to where you make yourself happier when you see your figure drawing.
Your sense of frustration with the StarCraft stuff is perfectly parallel to exactly what I'm doing. With figure drawing or yeah.
I have dealt with the same frustrations with classical guitar. Same deal. I would go through periods where I was improving and playing really well, and then through long stretches where I wasn't. And I practiced really, really hard. I wanted to get better, and I didn't. And same problem. This is very familiar to me. It's called a plateau. I know that, but I don't know why it happens. Thanks for listening, everybody. If you're on YouTube, we would love to have a comment. Tell us your thoughts. We have loved reading everything you guys have given us so far. You guys are amazing. If you're on a podcast platform, you can email us at theoveranalyzerspodcast@gmail.com. And we would also love to have a review. We're still very small, and the reviews matter to us tremendously. But thank you very much. We will see you next week.